Hello, this is Unitha El Muhammad, and I'm here with the Professional Troublemaker group, and I'm going over chapter 11. And this is our book we're reading by Luvvie Ajayi Jones, the Professional Troublemaker, and we're almost done. We're on chapter 11. And so chapter 11 is titled Grow Wildly. Grow Wildly. So I'm going over the following chapters because we missed a week because of Good Friday, and our group is supposed to end on the last Friday of the month. So I wanted to send these videos for you to go over the chapters, to meditate, and to give you thoughts about the chapters. And so that we'll be on target to end in our next session. So chapter 11, Grow Wildly. So the chapter starts off as we fear change. Yeah, we fear change. And so, I have a question for you. Do you fear change? Do you? And it says, who we are in the moment is not who we're going to end up being. So, who we are now is not who we'll always be. And so Luvvie starts talking about growth is an obligation. And then she starts talking about growing pains, right? And growing pains. I liked when she said it was like her emotional bones were stretching, and that the growing pains actually feels like physical pain at times, right? How many of you know that? You can read about growing pains on page 185. But sometimes our growth and our transformation can be painful. And I like how she said my emotional bones, because some change is internal. So people can lose weight or change their hair or change this or change that. But there is a change that is internal, and it's about in spiritual, right? She talks about that. Some of our change is spiritual. Some of it is internal, and it's based on we're just not comfortable where we are. Are you comfortable where you are right now? And if not, what things in your life do you feel need to change? And so sometimes if you don't know what things or what areas, or get this, if you don't know how to change the things in your life, that's when you can go to therapy and see a counselor, or see a life coach, or see a pastor or a minister who can kind of walk you through and talk you through how to implement change in your life and in the different areas of your life, because there may be areas that you want to change. And so I love what she said, that growing wildly is sometimes not a choice, but a need. We need to be growing. We need to be moving. We need to be stretching. We shouldn't be the same person we was last year, last month, 10 years ago. That's not good. And I think if you don't change, you stay stagnant. You stay in a place of just being stuck. And some people feel like that. Some people are like, I just feel stuck. And if you find yourself feeling stuck, then that's a time when you need to think about, well, what needs to change, or how do I need to change, or what needs to change in my life so that I can get that movement again, so I can get that momentum again, so that I can advance to the levels that I know God wants to advance me to, in my mind, in my body, in my spirit. And so, she doesn't say this in the book, but to me, I feel like change growth is a spiritual work. Part of growth is transformation. It's healing. You can't grow without looking at something about yourself and saying, wow, okay, that needs to change. That's not good. How can I improve it, Lord? What can I do to make it better? Sometimes it could be, what if you realize you're the negative Nancy in the room? What if you realize you're the one that's so critical? What if you realize you're the one that's petty? What if you realize you're the one that's the SHIT starter, right? What if you're that person? And then you have to get real with yourself and realize, oh, that's me. And then now let's get to the root of why I'm like that, because we don't just become negative or toxic or complaining all the time or never can be satisfied, never can be happy on our own. It's coming from something. And so we have to think about that. And I love when Luvvie started talking about when people start saying you've changed, once you start doing the work, once you start implementing, and then people say, you changed, you different. Have you heard that before? You've changed, you're different. Well, I love what she said. She said, we're no longer, okay, so you've changed means that we're no longer our old selves and they don't recognize who we are. So they don't recognize the new person. So we're no longer our old selves and they don't recognize the new person. So in those moments, you have to be able to keep showing up in that new place and not be tempted to go back and revert back when you're with certain people or family members or friends who still want to relate to you in the old way, because that's what happens some people, and then you end up living a double life. You end up being one way with one set of people and another way with another. No, you want to be consistent all the way through, which means if you start changing, you got to change your relationships and you got to change how you interact in your relationships. So all of this, that's part of the pain, because there's some people you realize that were once treasured and close and confidants, and you realize as you change, maybe that relationship wasn't all that you thought it was. Maybe you realize in that way, that person never kept my confidence, or that person never really liked me or never really cared for me in the same way that I cared about them. And that revelation can be very painful. And then that can cause you to be depressed, or it can cause you to try to make it right in situations that God just wants you to move on, right? So in your change, you have to, I believe change is a spiritual work, it's a godly work, and I think it's something that we should do, being led by the Spirit and guided through the process of healing, guided through the process of change and growth and expansion. Because what's going to happen at the end of the day, we're not going to be who we first started out. Like, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the book, I said by the time we end this book, we're going to be different. We're not going to be the same people. We're going to have different outlooks. We're going to have, because I just know that whenever we've decided to walk on a particular journey, God begins to speak to us and we begin to see things in ourselves in a different light. And so, know that your change is about you. Luvvie started talking about how our change is about us and no one else. So don't allow other people to try to hijack your growth and hijack your change and try to be like, well, you need to change because the way you did me, or sometimes you could have spouses or family members or friends who be telling you how you need to change, right? But is that really how you need to change, or how they want you to show up for them? And you have to be able to discern what they're saying and see what has merit and then what is about them. And you got to switch it back and make it about you, not in a selfish way, not in an ego way, but in a way that you can keep centered to what you need to do. So I'm getting lengthy, so I just want to highlight this chapter, because I want to highlight the next couple of chapters so that we'll be on board for our last week of the group. But this is chapter 11. Meditate on it. So do not, and then another thing she said, and I love this, is on page 194, do not allow others to weaponize the old you against the new you. So again, that's not allowing people to make your old self a villain and talk about all the dirt and stuff you did then and not see that you're showing up differently and that you are different. Don't allow people to do that to you, and that's a very important thing. And she gave some pointers and things to say, and I don't want to give everything away because I want you to read the chapter, but it was full of so many things. And as we end chapter 11, she says, let me put on my readers to get this last thing. She ends with Psalm 61, and I love this. She says, when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. That is what I chant to myself in times I'm called to grow beyond what feels feasible. I always end up on those high rocks, and I'm thankful. That's how she ends. And she says, give yourself permission to grow widely, to transform, to change your opinions, to change your surroundings, to change 3 times a day while on vacation. And she gets all these little jokes and stuff. You always have a right to be different from how or who you were, if that is what is in your heart. You have a right to change your mind about your beliefs. You have a right to change your political parties after learning more. You have a right to change the color of the bathroom. And so it's change. It's not optional. It's life necessary and perpetual go-to that can break our hearts, make us scream, thrill us. It will challenge us and sometimes make us wonder if we can make it past the pains of it all. And so it's a lot to change, but there's benefits to changing because we get to show up different. We get to be different. We get to show up differently, and we get to be all in and approach life from new ways. So this was chapter 11. I'm going to be shorter for chapter 12. And chapter 12 is Fire Yourself. That's going to be interesting. I'm going to talk about chapter 12 next. And this is a good chapter to read and meditate, and I hope it blesses you. And if you have any questions or any comments, shoot me an email at ulmahommed@faithfamily.org, and I'll answer them. But we want to just shoot through these chapters, and I'm really having this as a guide as you read on your own, because we want to finish our group at the end of the month. We've been going a long time, a lot longer than I planned, but we decided to have the group meet every other week instead of every week because it's on a Friday night. And so we're at the end, y'all. So chapter 11, see you next up for chapter 12.